Today, the party is setting out details of how it will deliver the potential of Brexit Britain, including a new board of trade. And the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, is in our Newcastle studio. Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning.
Let's talk first about the London Bridge attack. Was it an intelligence failure?
Well, a few points, Michelle. First of all, I think we should pay tribute, before we start ascribing blame, I think we should pay tribute to the incredible response of the armed police officers. Speaking as somebody who worked over many years with the counter-terrorism intelligence community, they do a fantastic job in keeping us safe. Yes, of course, we must look at what happened with respect to this guy that everybody can see on their front pages today, who was on this Channel 4 programme. We need to understand what happened in that case. But, Michelle, there is a live investigation going on, and you would not expect me to comment on that. I think the other point I would make is, it's absolutely right that we should look at how we conducted the case, our response to the threat, but this should not detract from the fundamental responsibility of the terrorists who set out to kill and to maim on Saturday night.
Indeed, but the police themselves have spoken about the fact that they knew of Khurram Butt, that they began an investigation into him. He then wasn't regarded as a high priority because they didn't think that he was plotting an attack. Looking at all of that, do you think he should have been at the top of the terror watch list, or certainly further up after he appeared in that Channel 4 documentary last year?
Of course, those are the questions that are going rightly to be asked by by MI5 and by the security service and by the police. But it's simply impossible for me now to anticipate the outcome of those discussions. But what I can say is, because there's been an awful lot of attacks on policing and police numbers and that kind of thing in this last few days of the election campaign, I do think it is absolutely extraordinary and a bit rich that we're hearing this sort of language from a Labour Party led by Jeremy Corbyn.
Wait, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. I just want to ask you about the London Bridge attack. Yes. Given that you say there are questions we need to ask, do we need an independent review then in order to answer those questions?
I'm absolutely certain that we will get answers to the questions that you rightly put about the particular investigation into the individuals concerned, the people who are responsible for the London Bridge attack. But if I can just complete my point, Michelle, it is weird that we should now be facing attacks on terrorism and keeping the public safe, not only from a Labour Party that, by the way, wanted to cut police numbers in 2015, but also from Jeremy Corbyn, a guy who has consecrated his parliamentary career to opposing counter-terrorism measures and boasts about his standing against anything. Right. Some
of which measures the Prime Minister herself voted against. How did you vote? In 2005, how did you vote on the plans to allow police to detain terrorism suspects for up to 90 days?
Well, there are measures that I have not supported myself, but there are the vast
including
majority,
that one.
There are a vast majority of measures that have come before the House of Commons I have supported, because of course you can improve measures and you can make sure that they are in line with our laws. But Jeremy Corbyn has opposed
for the record, that particular measure you voted against it, didn't
Jeremy
you?
Corbyn has opposed every single one, and not only that, Michelle, but he has sent out a signal that he is personally opposed to the use of shoot-to-kill tactics that were invaluable in saving people's lives.
Mr. Johnson,
I don't
know why you're saying that, because Jeremy Corbyn is actually on the record as saying that
he's on the record. No, he's on the record as saying that he opposes shoot-to-kill.
Let me actually put rather than some political rhetoric, let me put the record on what he has said. He has said in the wake of the London Bridge attack that
he's changed his mind in the wake of the London Bridge attack.
This is not a one-off, what he said, but I want to put it to you directly to set the record straight. He will take whatever action is necessary and effective to protect the security of our people, and that includes full authority for the police to use whatever force is necessary to protect and save life, as they did on Saturday night and as they did in Westminster in March.
Are you denying, Mishal Husain, that Jeremy Corbyn has in the past, and actually in the quite recent past said that he is opposed to the use of shoot to kill.
I'm setting the record straight in what he has said in the wake of the Westminster attack and the wake of what happened in London Bridge. Let's talk. I know you're very keen to talk about Jeremy Corbyn, and I understand why you're keen to do that. But Mr. Johnson, you're the Foreign Secretary.
Every single one of the counter-terrorism measures that we put in place,
and I want to talk to you
to shoot to kill. Go on.
About your record in government, and particularly about the police numbers. Now, will you look again at the police cuts that are planned in the next 4 years for London? Let's talk about London in particular first of all, because the Mayor of London has said that the Met is facing cuts in police numbers of between 10 to 40% over the next 4 years. Is this the moment that you need to look again at that?
Well, the Mayor of London will know very well that over the 8 preceding years before he became Mayor, and when I was Mayor, we kept police numbers high. We kept them at about 32,000. Crime came down very considerably during that period. And it is also the case that when you look at the counter-terrorism effort that this country is leading, and I again pay tribute to our counter-terrorism and the security services, we are putting more money into that. We are not only increasing the number of armed officers now, but we are putting another 500 million into SIS, into MI5, GCHQ.
That's a rather different argument. Nationally, there are at least 700 fewer armed police officers now than in 2010.
I think you will find, if you look at Lord Harris's report, Sadiq Khan actually commissioned a report from Toby Harris, who used to serve on the Metropolitan Police Authority, and he looked into the number of armed officers on the streets of London. He concluded that was not the issue. We had enough, and indeed, when you look at what they did,
I put to you the national figures.
When you look at what they did on Saturday night, not only getting to the scene so quickly, but dispatching those scumbags within 8 minutes.
Yes, but nevertheless, seven people died.
Most people would pay tribute to the work of armed officers. Right. And on the question of that particular operation and how it came about that we had these 3 radicalized jihadis, I think the Prime Minister has set out a program of work that we need to do as a country, as a society.
Okay, I think from what you're saying, you're saying no to the question that I asked you, which is whether you'd look again at the future cuts. So we can.
No, I don't. Sorry, I don't know how you derive that conclusion.
Because you didn't say you weren't.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, we are actually increasing the number of armed officers. The numbers of police officers in our capital city has remained high. It is up to the Mayor of London, if he chooses to spend more on policing and to keep those numbers high. He can do that. It is within his. That's what we did. We reorganised the police in London so as to put more officers out on the front line. It was difficult. It involved all sorts of economies. We worked with Theresa May, who was extremely helpful and accommodating in keeping those numbers high.
Okay,
now, that is a matter for the Mayor. But
it's rather different to what he's saying.
I do think it is extraordinary that we're getting these attacks on the role of the police and the intelligence agencies and all the rest of it, and the success of the agencies from Diane Abbott, who is our putative next Home Secretary. Okay. Again, a person who has spent...
And again, I understand why you're so keen to talk about people in the Labour Party, but I want to ask you about...
I am, because there is a very serious
Your party's been in government for 7 years. Yes, indeed. One quick question about Donald Trump's planned state visit. Should that go ahead, given what he said about Sadiq Khan?
Well, I do not wish to interpose myself into a row between the Mayor of London and the President of the United States. I've been there myself. I've done that. What I will say is, as a former holder of Sadiq's office, is that I think he is entirely right to say what he said to reassure the people of his city about the presence of armed officers.
You are now the Foreign Secretary. Are you happy to welcome Donald Trump on a state visit after what he said?
Well, the invitation has been issued and accepted, and I see no reason to change that. But as far as what Sadiq Khan has said about the reassurances that he's offered the people of London, I think he was entirely right to speak in the way.
Okay, no reason to rescind it, despite Donald Trump misrepresenting Sadiq Khan's views in the first place and what he said.
I don't wish to enter into a row between those two individuals who are, I think, probably perfectly able to stick up for themselves if I know them both. And but what I will say is that as mayor of London, Sadiq was perfectly right to reassure the public about the presence of armed officers on the street. And I have to say, it really is bizarre that we should be on Thursday confronted with the possibility of Prime Minister Corbyn, Home Secretary Diane Abbott, the one who doesn't favour shoot to kill in spite of what you say.
Right. So please
stop talking. You've invited me on your show to talk.
I just said it's the third time you've mentioned Diane Abbott, and you're the Foreign Secretary. You've got a big job in government. So I think we should.
Go on.
Whoever is Prime Minister, the Brexit negotiations will start in just over a week's time. And you're putting forward a board of trade today in a way to, in your words, in your party's words, a way to maximise the potential of the country after Brexit. What will our opening approach be in those negotiations?
The free trade negotiations with countries around the world, or the negotiations
No, I mean the
negotiations
with the EU, which will start in about 10 days' time.
Right. Well, I think the Prime Minister has set out very clearly in her Lancaster House speech of 17th of January what the priorities should be. And I think they're priorities that are widely understood by our friends and partners around the table in Brussels. They can see a way forward. It's clear what we need to do. We need to get a great free trade deal. We need to come out of the single market and the customs union. And we need to work intergovernmentally on all the issues, indeed intensify our cooperation intergovernmentally with our friends and partners, so as to create a deep and special partnership, a new relationship based on trust and friendship between a strong UK and a strong EU. And that is what we want to achieve, based on free trade. And it's something that can be immensely beneficial to this country, and we can do not just a great free trade deal with the EU, but it will also, as today's announcement indicates, enable us to go forward with free trade deals with the rest of the world. And that is a genuinely exciting thing. We haven't been able to do it for 45 years.
And that deal might involve us paying money to the EU, a divorce bill?
Well, I certainly don't think there's any case whatever for paying huge sums of money to the EU as some sort of Brexit settlement.
Sums of money, perhaps.
And one thing I will say, I don't think Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party would have a cat's chance in Hades of negotiating a decent settlement with the EU. There are huge sums of money we can take back, and that we should take back control of, and that can be used to the benefit of the people of this country. As you know, there's a £10 billion net contribution we make every year. Okay. That must come back.
If the Conservatives are re-elected, will you be back as Foreign Secretary?
My job is to campaign for a Conservative victory on Thursday, because I am genuinely alarmed by the prospect of a Corbyn-led negotiating team wandering into that chamber in Brussels and frankly being eaten alive, Brexit being frustrated. I'm campaigning to be MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip.
Fine. And just speaking of teams, if the Conservatives are re-elected and Michael Gove comes back to the cabinet, will you be happy to have him back?
Look, I'm campaigning for a Conservative government, and that is the most important thing, and a government led by Theresa May, because I genuinely think it would be a catastrophe for this country if we were to have not just because we've got a Labour leadership that is, in my view, weak on terrorism, but also because I think they are intellectually incoherent on Brexit, on what they want to achieve. They would not pull it off. I fear that what would happen would be that there would be a huge mess, and the will of the people, as expressed on June the 23rd last year, would end up being frustrated, and we would get the worst of both worlds.
Boris Johnson.
And that I shudder. That prospect I shudder at.
Boris Johnson, thank you very much. And there is a full list of the candidates in the Uxbridge and Ruislip South constituency on the BBC website.